Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Yo to Bolt fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, do we have some news in the offseason? I don't know, man. I feel pretty good about what the Chargers have made and brought together in terms of the offseason so far. We got a pretty stellar draft behind us. I'm pretty happy with the free agent acquisitions as well. But it seems that there may be some talk behind the scenes about the Chargers maybe trading for a tight end, which would be very interesting. Yes, the Jim Harbaugh teams have always relied heavily on tight end. The Chargers do have some guys in-house, but the situation could improve. I think it has improved from last season. You guys remember Hayden Hurst, who I think had a chance to see a bounce back with the Chargers. Unfortunately, injuries and stuff did derail that. But the situation itself in tight end has to improve in order for this offense to get off the ground. A Jim Harbaugh offense demands good quarterback play. And there may be an opportunity or two for the Chargers to trade into a better tight end situation with guys like Jonnu Smith and, yes, Kyle Pitts, who has been talked about being traded. The Chargers have been one of those teams, obviously, like they always are, to be one of those destinations, as they would all be great fits. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on, some of the talks about these trade rumors, and whether or not this is something the Chargers could put a hat into the ring for. So before we do get things started, shout out to the sponsor, as always, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers, take advantage of the offer on screen. It's a great way to support my platform while having some fun along the way. As we kick off, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, the small amount of time you guys take to the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Trade rumors in June. Happy June, everybody. Hey, guess what? Only one more month until Chargers football, kinda. July 31st. It's going to be a long way. But till then, man, the Chargers got a lot of work to do. I would say mostly at this point, it feels like we're at the stage where we got all the pieces that we're looking at, start putting stuff together and seeing where the strengths and weaknesses of this roster do lie. And the Chargers coaching have been great at that the last couple of seasons. Of course, last year being the year, Jim Harbaugh comes in, the team looks completely different. We go from, what was it, a 5-win team? Crazy to think about that year, man, to an 11-win team. Definitely playoff caliber. All of a sudden, the culture is here, the identity is here, the vibe is here. But in, those coaching and changes and the way the team is being built, you are looking for weaknesses that you can address in some way, shape, or form. And I'm going to say Joe Ortiz has done an amazing job at that. I think we often talk about the Charger situation in terms of, coaching and staff and all that. But the GM situation has improved by quite a bit. And I think this is another opportunity for GM Joe Ortiz to maybe find a better solution at tight end, where the Jim Harbaugh teams, like we mentioned before, have always really leaned on. Take a look at everywhere he's, coached, San Diego, Stanford, and of course, San Francisco. Tight end has been a pretty big part of the equation. They want to run the football, they want physicality, and they do want play from the tight end position. It just so happens that there's, a lot of talk going on behind the scenes as to the Chargers maybe being a candidate in some tight end trade scenario. So first off, let's kind of take a look at the situation at hand. Like, what are we working with this year? Because I'm not going to sit back and say, hey, we are just as desperate as we were last year for a tight end. The situation has not improved, because it has. We have made a couple of signings and a draft that really do push us in the right direction for the position improving. Tyler Conklin probably being the biggest impact player that we're going to see this season. A lot like we saw with Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst more specifically. We're looking for a guy to be, the weapon and the support, right? The run blocker. And unfortunately, the weapon part of it in Hayden Hurst did not quite pan out. This is take 2 of that. Tyler Conklin is going to be a weapon for this team, and he's certainly not a bad option. 500 to 600 yards, is probably what he's good for. He averages like 3 or 4 touchdowns. This is maybe his best quarterback situation that he's had in his career, so you can expect some maybe bigger numbers, like another career year, for Conklin. But it's definitely one of those situations where I feel a lot better about the tight end position going into this year because of Tyler Conklin and his signing. He's got excellent hands. He's very reliable. He's the perfect segue tight end for this year as we continue to try and address the situation for the future. And that being maybe the biggest indicator of that is his contract, only a 1-year deal. At $3.1 million against the cap is really not a huge hit. He's 30 years old, so maybe the incentive for a future contract exists here. The situation has been set up perfectly where we're going to get some nice production out of Conklin, and his past performance does prove that we're in pretty good hands here. And does set us up, for something in the future. And again, he's 30 years old, still has gas left in the tank. And he could see a career year like a lot of Chargers that we saw last year. Could see a career year, get a nice contract either here or somewhere else. But it's a good situation for all parties involved. At tight end 2, of course, we have Will Dissly, who was the unsung hero from 2024. With Hayden Hurst going down, Will Dissly stepped up into that receiving position, and he put up a career season, 481 yards, 2 scores. He's surprisingly good, man. Surprisingly, solid hands. But he really does need the freedom to do what he does best, and that's blocking. This is a run-blocking tight end. I should say pure blocking tight end. He's also very good in terms of pass blocking. And he's going to be one of the best in the NFL. He just didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to shine and be utilized exclusively in that way last year because he was asked to step up and be that weapon for Justin Herbert as well. I think this year the Chargers have better positioned Will Dissly to do just that. Let's go ahead and flex, the things that make him special in the NFL and allow him to perform in that way. He still has 2 years left on his contract. And he's only 28 years old, surprisingly. So I wouldn't be shocked if he sticks around for a little bit longer as well. I know this is exactly the kind of tight end the Chargers want to keep on the roster. And if he can still keep producing at a high level in terms of blocking and as a backup receiving tight end, then let's have at it. And then lastly, maybe the tight end that gets everybody the most excited, Oriana Gadson II. This is a player that, a lot of Chargers fans are pretty excited about when we draft, especially Dan Wolkenstein of Chargers Unleashed. He called me up and talked to our chat live on stream as to why he was so excited about this prospect out of Syracuse, and it's for good reason, man. He's recorded nearly 1,000 receiving yards, not once, but twice at Syracuse, and 6 or 7 touchdowns apiece. He's got the juice. He's got what it is a tight end, a special receiving tight end would need in the NFL. And he's excellent, man. He's an excellent route runner. He lines up everywhere. He's in the slot quite a bit in Syracuse. You're seeing a really nice opportunity for all these traits to translate to the Chargers as maybe that next weapon, right? Maybe even surpassing, the Donald Parham kind of role. Maybe actually an exclusive weapon for Justin Herbert in the next couple of seasons. But that's just the thing. He's probably going to need some time, as most tight ends do in the NFL. This is a position that takes a few years to develop. But we could have something special in Gadson. I really do think so. And I do think that it wouldn't shock me if he got a little bit involved more than we're all anticipating in his rookie season. But till then, Conklin and the supporting cast, these provide, some awesome stability while we're waiting to see what Gadson has in the tank. Now, in regards of trades, because this is where, the third party comes in as to maybe improving the Chargers tight end room situation. The first thing I want to get off the table here is that people say, oh, no, we're good at tight end. We got the 3 guys. That's what you need in a football team. I really think the Chargers will be one of those teams that roster 4, if not more, or 4, considering the way that they like to run their offense. You're going to want some, guys blocking. You're going to want some weapons involved in receiving. And I think there's room. And I think it wouldn't be too crowded even if you had Tyler Conklin, who's also a pretty good blocker. If you guys could take a look at his PFF stats, Conklin's not a bad blocker as well. Will Dissly, Gadson, having depth at that position, which is so important to your offense. I think all these things add up to, not too many cooks in the kitchen. Which leads us to our first guy here, Jonnu Smith. The first tight end that's kind of been talked about being traded by the Miami Dolphins. There's been connections to several teams. I think the Steelers were one of them. The Chargers, I've heard, obviously, being talked about and speculated, and lots of questions about, whether or not we should get in on this trade. And it's been something that I think has been brewing, at least from what I understand, for the last few days, especially. Today, as a matter of fact, I did read an article stating that Jonnu did want to stay in Miami. I think he's got some roots there, at least some that's where he likes to live in the offseason. So I think that's very fair. I think Jonnu Smith staying in Miami makes a whole lot of sense. I see the reasons why they're trying to trade him. It feels like it may be financial. It feels like it may be, outside of Jonnu Smith, the player. But I think it's interesting. Like, there's teams like Pittsburgh and trying to get in there where they already have, 3 really good tight ends with Washington, obviously Freiermuth and all that kind of stuff. And Jonnu Smith and the Dolphins, it feels like that's a good place to stay, but who knows what their motive is. Jonnu Smith, the player, quietly one of the most well-rounded and dangerous receiving tight ends in the last couple of seasons. Where was he before? It was the Patriots, right? Where he was more or less okay. Him and Hunter Henry splitting some time there, right? And he has always been that fast, nimble, agile tight end. But honestly, you take a look at what he's done the last couple of years, it looks pretty good. Logging nearly 600 yards and 3 scores in 2023, which is respectable in his short time with Atlanta, which I do remember he was revving up late in that season. Like, all of a sudden, here comes Jonnu Smith, and you're like, okay, they may have something there, and then the season was over. And then last year, he kind of did pop. 884 yards, 8 touchdowns. Miami, he was a pretty important part of that offense. I don't know. Miami may be trying to capitalize on this big performance he had this season. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Of course, he is in a contract year, so it does feel like there's maybe some money motives floating around here that could be the reasoning behind all of this. But either way, Jonnu Smith, he's in a good spot. He is 30 years old. That's something that's going to come into play here, and that's what we'll kind of go into next. The contract, maybe the trade cost here. Smith is on a contract year. It's a contract year for him. He's a $4.6 million on his deal left, which, if he were traded, would be a great deal for even a 1-year rental, right? He's coming off a big season. He's got the speed. I think he ran a ridiculous 6'2" or something like that. He's definitely very fast for the position. He's very athletic. And there are traits behind him that would be very attractive to a team like the Chargers, who have a quarterback with such a big arm. The issue here in terms of his contract is, the value's here now, but he's going to need an extension pretty immediately. Unless you're really strictly looking for a 1-year rental, which I do not think the Chargers are. We already have that in Tyler Conklin. You're going to have to hand out another contract to a guy like Jonnu Smith. And I'd guess that his next deal, because this is pretty good value they're getting right now at $4.6 million, his next deal is going to be north of that per season. I would say, again, I'm spitballing here, but maybe somewhere around $6 million a season, maybe higher, which is, definitely up there for a guy that's in his 30s. But again, his game has held up well. He's even improved over the last couple of seasons. And tight end generally can play, a little longer than other positions in football. So who knows? But in terms of a trade deal, I don't know what the Miami Dolphins will be looking for, man. Realistically, to me, you should be able to get Jonnu Smith for a 5th or 6th round pick. If that's the case, then maybe. But we'll talk more about what my preferences are here at the end of the video. Finally, we got Kyle Pitts, which it feels like every single season. Here's your annual Kyle Pitts video. Who's he coming to the Chargers? He's not coming to the Chargers. This has been at the front of our minds as Chargers fans for a while now, and it's because the idea of pairing up, and this is probably the biggest reason, the idea of pairing up Kyle Pitts with Justin Herbert is just that exciting. Of course, Kyle Pitts has insane traits. He's one of the fastest tight ends you'll find. He's like 6'5", 6'6" even. A big dude, huge target. He had one of the most legendary careers in college ball. Like, he is that kind of, high caliber player that just hasn't quite reached that mark. He did once, a stellar rookie season, and then he had kind of a huge drop off since then. And it feels like finally, after so many years of tugging and pulling and dragging their feet, it feels like the Falcons are open to trading him. For the first time in all the speculation videos, we have finally heard officially that the Falcons may be interested in moving on from Kyle Pitts, who is on a contract year. So let's take a look at some of what Kyle Pitts' recent work looked like and if we can improve upon it. Pitts has been, yes, underwhelming since his rookie season where he crossed 1,000 yards. Last season, though, wasn't as awful as I was anticipating when I was like, oh man, it's Kyle Pitts, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns. It's okay, right? But you'll get the same thing out of a Tyler Conklin that we're going to get, for what, like $3 million or something like that. So the money does not line up with the production as of right now for Kyle Pitts. Not at all. You would expect way more from a tight end with his skill set, his special size, his special speed, and physical attributes. It's not quite lining up. But, like we did say, Pitts has all the tools, a ridiculous amount of tools. He ran a 4.44, which is nuts for a person, a human his size. He's insanely agile. He's displayed incredible hands, route running, size, everything. But it's just not translated to the NFL level for him. Is it because of lack of quarterback play? The quarterbacks that he's had rotating in and out of Atlanta have certainly not been the highest of quality. If he ends up getting traded to a place like the Chargers, Justin Herbert would be miles ahead of any quarterback he's ever had in his career. Things to consider. But a big thing to consider also is that the lack of production, considering all these things, is very concerning. Are we willing to look past that kind of stuff? What would it cost too? That's probably the biggest question I'm getting from Chargers fans. Because I'm getting gassed about this all weekend, man. Everybody's like, where's the Kyle Pitts video coming out? What's coming out? Okay, fine. I'll make a Kyle Pitts video. At least a small segment in one of them to address it. You guys are wondering the Kyle Pitts contract situation and his all that kind of stuff. Pitts is on the final year of his deal, which is probably why the Falcons are willing to move on from him, right? Right now, the word on the street is that the Falcons are looking for a day 2 pick. Which is what? A second-round pick or a third-round pick? Which, let's be clear, second-round pick is already off the table. We'll get back to it. We'll swing back around to that in just a second. In terms of money, he's making around $10 million a season now, which is in line with the tight end contracts in their first few seasons in the NFL. I think he's on his 5th-year option right now. But who knows what a new team would pay him? Let's say he does get traded. You're going to need to pay that $10 million up front, and then after that, Jonnu Smith are going to have to give him a new contract right away, which this is all kind of part of the gamble. What do you pay Kyle Pitts, right? Because top tight ends in the league right now, they're making close to $20 million a season. Is that correct? Yeah? Is it Kittle and McBride, right? Those guys both signed contracts around $20 million a year, which is crazy for the tight end position. But what is Pitts' upside worth to you as a Chargers fan, as an NFL executive, as an NFL GM? Like, what would the upside of Kyle Pitts be worth? Because it's certainly not anywhere near Kittle or McBride at this point, right? Well, given his production over the last couple of seasons, I would say he's definitely less than $10 million a year. I would say he's closer to guys like Conklin and these guys are making $4 or $5 million a season, like Jonnu Smith, which is, I think, more than fair to say. If you want to prove it situation scenario for Kyle Pitts, I think you can trade for him this year, add maybe a year or two in prove it money, right, for Kyle Pitts to see if he can improve his situation. I think that's more than fair. And I would say, in that range of $5, $6, $7 million is kind of where I'd feel comfortable. But I do expect him, despite all of that, to maybe make north of $10 million a season. I don't think anywhere close to 10, but you could argue 10, 11, $12 million a year. I think there's a team out there that would be willing to pay that. But where he lands is also very important to his career. Now, the trade cost is also going to be intriguing. A day 2 pick is interesting. I'll say right now, a round 2 pick is ridiculous, and that would never happen. Not as long as I'm a Chargers fan. But a third, I might be talked into if there was more added, like if the Falcons threw in like a 5th or 4th or whatever, maybe you could talk me into a third. But right now it feels like a 4th round pick is kind of where I'm feeling like, okay, let's talk cheddar here, right? Let's talk turkey. Let's see what we can get done for a 4th round and maybe some change, like a late round pick or whatever. Because if anybody needs change, it's Kyle Pitts. Nice segue, director. Thank you. This is where the situation for Kyle Pitts is as equally as important as how much money he's making, because Kyle Pitts, and I think him and his agent, and everybody knows this, Kyle Pitts is a very unique player. Very few players have ever come into the league with the kind of opportunity that he has to be something special. He's not lived up to it. Now, there's a few teams in the league that improve the situation for players that don't live up to expectation. I feel like the Patriots at one time were that team, right? At times it was the 49ers, I would say. Teams that just find good value in players and for whatever reason can spark new life into their careers. The Chargers are that hallmark team right now. I would argue there's no other team in football that have taken as many players as the Chargers and turned their careers around. And this is why Pitts feels like a good bet. If you're going after him and you have all this questions of upside and cost and this and that, the Chargers and what they have accomplished with struggling players over the last season make me confident in moves like this. Let's do it. Let's take a chance. Because we got guys from J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards who had great seasons. I mean, maybe not because of injury. Like, it could have been even better. But comeback player of the year nominee in Dobbins? Yeah. Defensive players like Poona Ford, Elijah Molden. You know, a rotating, door of safeties and corners. Like, everybody had a huge bounce back. And you saw big contracts come out of the Chargers from these signings this season. Christian Fulton went out and got a nice contract from the Chiefs. Poona Ford got a nice contract from the Rams. This is the place to come rekindle your career. We got the coaching. We got the environment. It works. It's proven. The Bolts simply know what they're doing to get the most out of their players. And that's why a player like Kyle Pitts really makes my ears twitch, like perk up, Man, Kyle Pitts with the Bolts and Jim Harbaugh? I'd be very interested to see what the Chargers could do with a younger guy like Kyle Pitts. Remember, he's only 25 years old. Imagine what the Bolts could do, what a Jim Harbaugh team could do. This particular position in retrospect of what he's done with all tight ends throughout his coaching career, is tight end not one of those positions where you're expecting a big jump in production despite whatever this and that in the last season or two? I really do think Kyle Pitts with the Chargers, with Jim Harbaugh, with Ben Herbert and all these guys, that's a Kyle Pitts I want to see. I guarantee there's something there. That leads me to my final question. Would I do it? Would I trade? Yes. I think I would. Tight end is not completely set for me yet. I feel a lot better about it. I think Conklin's going to do great. Do I think that trade happens? Probably not. But would I do it? Probably, yeah. Because Conklin, as great as he is, it reminds me of the situation with Najee Harris in the draft. I got a lot of people telling me, no, we don't want running back because we got Najee and this and that. I'm not letting a one-year contract dictate a long-term signing. At least me. I'm not going to let that stop me from doing something potentially great. I love the idea of bringing in Najee Harris as that, primary guy and maybe backup plan if things fall apart and you don't get Amarian, or maybe if it was either, for me, it kind of feels like it was either Amarian or one of the Ohio State running backs, period. And that the idea of getting any of them, if you didn't select Amarian, felt very slim. Like you weren't getting back around unless you traded up. You know what I mean? So you either trade down and get one of the Ohio State guys, or you trade up and get one of the Ohio State guys. And I don't think the Chargers were looking to do anything like that. And I think that's why Amarian Hampton made so much sense. Despite Najee being on the roster, now you have a really nice 1-2 punch. Najee Harris and Amarian Hampton. I think Najee could stick around for a while too, being that lightning to the thunder back. That makes me believe the Chargers, if we're given opportunity to improve their tight end room, would take it. Now, Jonnu Smith is interesting, but his age kind of lumps him in the same arena as Conklin for me, which is, he's 30. It's a 1-year thing. That feels redundant. We already have Tyler Conklin for that situation. My eyes, in the terms of a trade, are strictly on Kyle Pitts. Because tight ends generally take some time. Right? Tight ends for a long time, you'll see them pop closer to their second contract or even on their second team. It's just one of those positions that takes a minute. And I think Pitts could definitely be in that boat. But you combine that with the fact that the Chargers have a stellar track record of coaching up players and getting value. I'm taking the bet on this otherworldly traits player that could become the next big thing at tight end if he's in a new environment, in a proper coaching situation with proper quarterback play. It feels like the gamble would be worth it. So what I'd be willing to do for Kyle Pitts is a 4th-round pick. You can talk me into a 3rd if they include more compensation, but let's just say a 4th-round pick. I'd be willing to pay Kyle Pitts the $10 million for this season. I would give him a contract in the realm of $7 to $8 million a season for a year or two to help improve himself in this new environment, and then see what happens. And if he has a great year, awesome. He's in good company with Tyler Conklin, Will Dissly, Oriana Gadson. Everything's set up where, man, you have this awesome developmental player that, you know, could see new life and be the next guy. The room doesn't look too crowded. You can rotate in Conklin. It puts Kyle Pitts in a good situation where he doesn't have to be the guy his first year. You're setting everything up to get that slow burn, that nice lead up, that ramp up to what could be a Kyle Pitts tight end 1 situation for the Chargers going forward. I like it. I'm sorry. Some people will say it's redundant. Director, you do this every year. You make a Kyle Pitts video and this and that. I'm still on the Kyle Pitts situation. Yeah, he sucked. he kind of did. He kind of sucks. He kind of sucked in the last year, maybe 2, with the Falcons. But, I mean, so did the quarterback play. So did their offense for whatever reason. Even with Bijan Robinson and Pitts and all these guys. Like, what's going on? I think these guys would be much different and much better in new situations. I think the Chargers are one of those teams that have proven that they can be that better situation for players like this. So you guys let me know in the comments what you think. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been the Director. Like we saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Kyle Pitts to the Chargers. 4th-round pick, $8 million. Let's do it.